So the first reading here, these are selections, if you saw them in the email that came out, from this book by Michael Beckwith, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Spiritual Liberation, Fulfilling Your Soul's Potential. It's a wonderful book. And at the end of the chapters, he writes these embodiment affirmations. They're long affirmations, so I've excerpted one here called From Real to Real, R-E-E-L, to Real, R-E-A-L. In this moment, I move into a celebratory consciousness, a grateful consciousness for the realization that as I surrender my life to the real, it is made more and more manifest in my experience, placing me in alignment with what is. With the simplicity of a child, I embrace the real, even as it embraces me. I hear with my inner ear the part I am to play in each area of my life. As I surrender to this guidance, I am not robbed of my individuality. I am freed from the sway of my ego that would glorify itself. So I turn with complete confidence to the presence within, and I hear it say, when you place your attention on that which is real, you will behold your original face, your true nature of wholeness. In my sense of individuality, I know that I am undivided from the whole. And knowing I am undivided from the whole, I proclaim that all of my needs are met on every level of my existence. There is divine peace. There is divine order. There is abundance, health, vitality, safety, and security. There is harmony and creativity. I am bold enough to accept this. I am confident enough to witness the presence of the living God within and around me. This is the reality upon which I rely, knowing that it transcends any paradigms of lack, limitation, and not enoughness. The divine life that I am transcends all diagnosis and prognosis. I begin again, right now, and step into reality. Thank you. Another reading from Michael Beckwith's book, Spiritual Liberation, honoring what for some, including myself at this time on the planet, could be seen as a dark night of the soul, and that this is a divine opportunity for birthing, to reinforce our God consciousness even deeper, even wider, even higher. So here, Michael Beckwith has an affirmation for us about how to make it through the night, a luminous view of the dark night of the soul. No longer do I struggle against uncomfortable circumstances, feelings, and experiences in which I cannot see an immediate way out. I listen to their message and receive their gifts. When all seems dark, I know that I am in a development process that is guided and lighted by the spirit within. I go forward in confidence and trust. I respond to the inner call of my spirit to go deeper within, to allow its transforming touch to reveal my wholeness. Something new is being born within me, and I yield to it. Meditation may be difficult, and my prayers seem dry, and even this I surrender. The spirit within me knows what it is doing with my life. Darkness and light are the same. Both give birth to my awakening. I am willing to become more myself through this process. My inner perception shifts, and I welcome this experience. I embrace it. These words that I speak are my declaration of rebirth. It is active within me now, and something magnificent is happening. Something rich is happening. With complete assurance, I know that the spirit is for me and not against me, that life is for me and not against me. I am a child of the universe, here to learn to walk in love of God amidst the crash of breaking worlds. I say, this shall not move me, and it does not. I am divinely supported, and all things work together for my good. These words are inspired by God. It's my, of course, pleasure and honor to be here with all of you and presenting this third of 3 homilies in a series focused on my book, NexGen Human. And I'll be taking advantage of the fact that we're here on Zoom and I'm at my computer and using a presentation. I have a series of slides that I'll go through. that allows me to be a little more free form and channeling, if you will, whatever it is that wants to be said through me, for you, for us. So I want to start here with this extraordinary example of life, of rebirth, of coming forth and shining our lights. Each year in the spring, the earth rebirths, and so do we. Every year, there's a rebirth. Every moment is an opportunity for rebirth. And transforming fear to love. That's the core of my message with NexGen Human, this opportunity to turn towards, see and embrace our fears and transform through them, to use and leverage them towards our higher, greater expansion and awareness and partnership with God. So as we've been doing throughout these homilies, heart math, I invite you to just take a moment to soften your gaze, maybe continuing to look at these flowers, if that's appropriate for you, or out the window, which you'll see me do often because there's these beautiful oak trees outside. Place the hands on the heart and just breathe into your heart. Move your awareness into the area of your heart, which is incredibly rich and powerful with love-based guidance and wisdom. And just take a few deep breaths there, slowing down and deepening your breathing. And bringing a sense of gratitude for the miracle of the life we are given, for the miracle of life itself. You can activate a sense of wonder and awe at this universe we're born into. What a spectacular, magical, wonderful, mysterious place we exist in. Activate a sense of celebration, appreciation, joy, and love. And I invite you into your own moment of rebirth. What is birthing through you in this moment? Let's be curious together. Let's be open together. Let's explore together this adventure of being human and what is now unfolding. So, thank you. With that in mind, this sense of exploration, this sense of adventure, here we are on our modern age path to fulfillment. And the theme has been building on Father Sean's distinction of Homo Spiritualis and this new human that's rising on the planet at this time, through and as each and every one of us. Other words for this is Barbara Marx Hubbard's Homo Universalis, or Sri Aurobindo's the Gnostic being, or he also talks about the superhuman. I love Nietzsche's Übermensch. And the Übermensch was deeply connected to God, deeply aware and surrendered to the universal life force energy. There's a myth that there was God is dead and the Übermensch was disconnected from that source of life. That is not correct. That's a misinterpretation of the Übermensch. At its core, the Übermensch is deeply spiritual. And Homo sapiens sentient. There are new words I see, and perhaps you do too, new words for what's wanting to come through humanity on the planet at this time, and that's inspiring. So we're exploring these opportunities for evolution in this moment in our own lives. Through these 3 homilies, this slide has got a lot here. These are the 11 chapters of the book. These are the 11 evolutionary traits of a NexGen human. In my first homily on April 23rd, I went through chapters 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is just reminding and reconnecting us to these traits. The first one is partnering with Source, that's the fundamental critical skill. And we're going to talk more about this today, since it's at the core. It's the, as I say, critical skill. Number 2 is the ability to celebrate and integrate the past. That's really our our own healing. That's a healing path of transforming our pain, our trauma, our challenges into light. And each and every one of us have a certain amount of that work to do. And that's incredibly powerful and very important work. It's alchemy at its deepest level. Number 3, proactively cultivating a focus on the good in life. Yes, there's incredible challenges. Yes, there's incredible darkness. And joy is the antidote to this darkness. Joy is needed now more on the planet than ever before. It's a radical rebellion to be joyful in the crashing down of the worlds and systems that we see today. I invite all of us to embrace joy and smile and dance in this darkness. That's needed. And yes, we embrace and look at the darkness. We don't turn and hide from it or ignore it. That's spiritual bypassing. So we know and we see and we are powerful enough to transmute that darkness into more and more joy. Number 4, chapter 4, we take responsibility for all aspects of our life as an act of claiming our power. Yes, we surrender to God. Yes, there's much that is way out of our control, and we claim our power where we have it. We wake up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we put on our clothes, we show up here. These are all acts of claiming our own power and being responsible creators of our lives. Number 5, we see life as a forever path of unfolding evolution. It never ends. It's an infinite journey. Every step you take, there's 2 more shown. And recognizing this is a wise trait to cultivate. Number 6, we know that growth and expansion happen over time, 1 step at a time. We move towards our adjacent possibles on our infinite evolutionary journey, 1 step at a time with patience and peace. Number 7, we know the power of our purpose. And we know that everyone has a purpose. We're all here with a unique mission, unique gifts to give. What is your unique mission? What are your gifts to give? And receive those from others. And number 8, these last 4 we're going to cover today go deeper into this partnership with the divine, with Source, with God. We're going to learn more about going with the flow and skillfully working with both the expansion energies and the contracting energies. Life opens and closes, just like the beat of our heart or the lungs breathing. There's an in-breath and an out-breath, a contraction and an expansion. We see the big picture. We're committed to the long-term evolutionary practice of life. Again, this long-term forever unfolding, even through multiple lives and incarnations. You can expand your evolutionary journey to cosmic infinite levels. And that can be very informing and inspiring. And last, engaging and practicing in community like companions on the journey, creating loving, authentic connections with others. So this is the context. This is the traits. We're going to move right in here to chapter 8. And again, the most important skill of a NexGen Human, of Homo Spiritualis, is this partnership with Source, cultivating a conscious connection and a living from this Source, this life force energy. I start this chapter by saying the longest journey a person will ever take is from their head to their heart. And there's a lot in that. Why is that the longest journey a person will ever take? What's so difficult about moving from the head to the heart? Why do we resist this? Why is there a challenge? We're going to talk more about that. And again, this is a journey of the heart. NexGen Human is anchoring awareness in the heart. And the heart for me is where my soul lives. The heart for me is where love lives. The heart for me is God. This is where I hear the voice of God. Where is the voice of God for you most clearly? It may be in your heart. It may be at other places. For me, the heart is powerful, and I breathe into and through my heart and find guidance there. On my journey of evolutionary expansion, as a trained engineer and businessman, I was very familiar with this side of life, the physical, the visible, this place of doing and manipulating and controlling, thinking from the head, lots of thinking. This need for control, this need to manipulate and cause outcomes and results. It's very force-filled. We're using forces, whatever they may be, to produce results in the world. So Our society, especially in the Western culture, has mostly mastered this. It is very important, but it's only one side. The other side is this. And this is the side where we have deep, deep, deep opportunity. This is the metaphysical. This is the invisible. This is the place of being. This is the place of heart. This is the universe or distinctions that are grounded in knowing rather than thinking, experience rather than belief, trust, and to use a David Hawkins distinction, it's power versus force. Who power lives here. And our opportunity is to expand our experience of this, to focus on it. What you focus on expands, expand it, because ultimately that is what everything else exists inside of. It's not a split left and right. It's actually everything exists in the metaphysical, invisible aspect of God. And so, in my book, I talk about this historical, traditional, religious view of the human-God relationship. And if you're like me, you suffered greatly in this model. It was this myth that God is something big and outside of us, and that we're small, little, puny humans, begging for crumbs through our prayers, beseeching God to save us. So there were these gatekeepers. There still are gatekeepers collecting lots of money so that you can have a relationship with God. And we are rewarded and punished with heaven and hell as the ultimate carrot and stick. This is God as the wrathful parent. Do as I say, and you will be rewarded. And if you don't, you're damned to hell. Well, I didn't like that model, and it didn't seem true to me at all when I was in those places that was being sold to me. There was something inside of me saying, no, that's not my reality. That's not my truth. God lives inside me, and I live inside God. So this evolved model of the human-God relationship is what I present as a NexGen Human. And you can see now that the human has, the circle that I am as a human has now moved into and is part and parcel with the universe, with the Great Spirit, with God. And there's a relationship that I can build, that I can cultivate. And this note on the right side, on the path of spiritual evolution, this boundary between ourself and God becomes more and more permeable and ultimately dissolves so that God and I are one. Oneness. There is no distinction. But this is a path, and this is the path of the NexGen Human. It's an evolutionary journey of what? Of dissolving the boundary or the perceptual experience of I am separate from God. I and God are not one. No, we are one. And we can become more and more aware of that, more and more permeable, more and more surrendered, more and more trusting of the God force, Great Spirit energy that we are in, through, and is us. So this is the path. And as a NexGen Human, we connect with Source. And from that place of what I call fullness, when we're full in the heart, full of love, full of possibility, we allow this divine inspiration to flow and move us. We are moved by Spirit. We are moved into action. In fact, you could say no action. We should take no action until moved by Spirit to do so. I want to share a personal story of awakening that happened for me about 15 years ago. This is the Big Sur coastline. I'm sure most of you have been here. This is how it looks in Big Sur. I went to the New Camaldoli Hermitage. Some of you have been there, and they have retreats that you can go to and be in silence for days. I went for 3 nights and 4 days, and was in silence, turned off all electronics, was in my own little trailer on the hillside, looking out at a scene similar to this, just breathing and being with the powerful energy of nature. And after I was in the middle of day 2, I went on a walk down their road that goes, it's a 1-mile drive to get up onto the Hermitage. They're way up high. And I was walking, and I was walking with God, and God started opening my awareness, and I started seeing things in a whole new technicolor kind of experience. And I wrote a poem about it. Was look at that, wow, because everything I looked at was a wow experience. Look at that, wow. I could hear the bumblebees, their motors buzzing. I was looking at flowers, and they were just amazing. And I came around a bend on this walk, and I saw a view similar to this. And I just turned towards this spectacular overflowing energy of the natural space, and tears began to flow. I just felt an overwhelming download of love into my every cell. And it felt spectacular. I became one with all that is. And I yelled out, "Don't ever leave me." Because the experience of separation was so stark for me that prior to this oneness experience, I saw how separate, alone, and individual I was, and how much suffering there is in that. And what I heard back when I yelled that out, I literally heard back, "We can't. Only you can leave us." And I started laughing because I knew that to be true. It's me that's moving in and out of connection with all that is, with the infinite love of the universe. I'm the one who's choosing to be in and with all that is and the love that's available or not. And to hear that energetic force tell me that we can't leave you, it's funny. And from there, I realized it's about partnership with Source. It's about my capacity to cultivate that oneness and to continuously do that. So we are the ones in the driver's seat, and partnering with the power of the universe is a choice that we make. It does not happen automatically for most humans. Being run by fear-based thoughts in the head happens automatically, and that is not a choice. That is the default human wiring. Living from God or Source or your heart is a choice you make, a choice that we make. And likely, especially early on, it's a choice we must make over and over and over again as we are hijacked by the fear-based amygdala and limbic system, typically from trauma, trying to protect us and keep us safe. So we're navigating these healing journeys into greater and greater oneness with God, choosing the infinite love that's available in every moment. One of the keys for me was my heart. And so I found heart math in 2004, and my world changed. As soon as I dropped into my heart and started breathing into my heart, I became more connected with the world around me, and it was transformational. And so I studied everything and got all the certifications that heart math offers, and realized and learned that the heart generates the body's most powerful electromagnetic field. It's 5,000 times stronger than the brain field. It can be detected several feet away from the body, and probably it's infinite. And we know that there's non-local connections. So just because we detect it several feet away with the magnetometers doesn't mean that's where it stops. It communicates physiological, psychological, and social information between individuals. Heart energy exchanges between people up to 5 feet apart. This has been scientifically studied and proven. It's not a myth that when you're sitting next to somebody who's radiating love, you feel it too. Or if they're radiating anger and hatred, you feel it too. We're in communication. Brain waves can synchronize with another person's heart. They've shown this too, especially between mothers and a child. There's an incredible bond between the mother and children and their children. When in a coherent, HeartMath uses the term physiological coherence. And this is a state where the mind and the heart and all of the physiological systems, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, especially that autonomic nervous system, is in a state of coherence where it's resonating a frequency of peace and joy and love and life. That's a physiologically balanced state. And when you're in that state, you're more aware of information in the heart fields around you. And you become a force of love in the fields that you are swimming in. The heart's field is directly involved with intuitive perception. In fact, the heart and brain respond to information about an event before it happens. This is precognition. This is psychic powers. You know things before they even happen. And this has also been scientifically studied and proven. Institute of Noetic Sciences has done these studies, so has HeartMath. Thoughts and feelings of love and appreciation generate coherence in the field. So again, our conscious choice to move into love, to move into heart, to radiate gratitude and joy, that's our most powerful thing. And that's what God wants for us. That's what God is. So here we are in our practice. I'm going to throw this in because I just love that, traditions around the world, cultures around the world knew this. They knew the life force was there, the subtle, invisible, metaphysical aspect of life. And they had names for it. So in China, they call it qi or ki. In Japan, it's ki, which is the root of reiki. In India, we talk about prana and the kundalini. And Egyptians had the ka. Polynesians call it the huna. Christian, Holy Spirit. And chiropractic even calls it universal intelligence. And there were lots of scientists that studied these fields. Cleve Baxter, primary perception. David Bohm in the quantum field or the implicate order. Sigmund Freud was looking at the libido. Carl Jung synchronicity was rooted in this place. Kirlian energy, synergy. I love Rupert Sheldrake's work with the morphogenetic fields. Nikola Tesla talked about the luminiferous ether. Other names is the unified field, zero-point energy, gravity field energy, the G field, the Fermi sea. These are all different ways of describing this metaphysical aspect of our life. So there are people on the planet who are saying God is dead. I think that is so hilarious. And I will say, you know what? God is dead for those people proclaiming that. And I feel a deep level of compassion for them. I feel sad for them because God is dead for these poor, suffering souls that are disconnected from their hearts and the universal energy that's flowing in and through them in all things. My heart that's infinitely grounded in love and universal intelligence, when it hears these people proclaim with a sense of anger in their presence, I feel sad. I feel sad for them, a sense of compassion. And at the same time, I'm shocked at their level of ignorance and hubris, because for someone, and this includes me, for someone who has no idea where they came from, how they got here, how they exist moment to moment, how the universe and its infinite complexity is so beautifully orchestrated, and where they go when they die to declare that God is dead is hilarious. It is, I have to laugh. I laugh at that. So God is very much alive. We are infinite beings. And the key is to transform the idea of God from an external concept to an internal reality. It's a choice that we make. We no longer look outside ourselves to someone or something to tell us what to do or how to be. We take responsibility for our lives. We create our own unique connection to source, and that becomes our compass. That becomes the tool that we guide ourselves with. We speak and be our truth from our connection to source. We are our own authority, and we are cautious of anyone else who claims to be an authority and telling us what to do. How can we do that? We connect to our own authority, and that is God itself living in and through us. So that's primarily my message of NexGen Human, partnership with Source. It's the most important, fundamental, foundational aspect of the path. And from there, we can move into other distinctions. So going with the flow. Going with the flow is not this lazy, willy-nilly, allowing just anything to happen, I don't care. Going with the flow is an astute ability to walk the razor's edge between action and non-action, between doing and being, and ultimately integrating both. It's a capacity to know when God is asking and impelling me and calling me into action, and when God is asking me to be quiet, to be peaceful, to be silent, to be relaxed. So we learn to attune to the force of God and come from there in our action and inaction. I give the analogy of the river of life. In the river of life, there are options we have as human beings. We can stand on the shore. We can get in the flow. We can paddle against the flow. we can paddle with the flow, and we can just float along. So each of us as human beings in the river of life, we're in it, whether we want to say we are or not. It's flowing. If you haven't noticed, we pop onto the planet and boom, life is going, right? It's happening. We're going from birth to death and we're in it. So what's your practice in this river of life? How much are you standing on the shore? And I'm not saying not to do that. Sometimes it's nice to crack a beer, put up your feet and soak in the rays a little bit, watch the river going by. How much are you in the flow? How much are you really relaxed and in the flow? How much do you paddle against it? Resist, trying to make it go the way you want. How much are you paddling with? When your life is really, you're just rocketing down the river of life and you're really in and with the flow. And how much are you just kicking back and floating along? I offer a blend of these practices. My ideal for my life is to mostly just float, to be in the river and floating, allowing it to take me. And then also paddling with it. I love paddling with it. Those are times when there's synchronicities and there's divine things happening in your life. And sometimes I do need to paddle against it. I've hit a rock and I need to back up a little bit and then redirect. So these are it's a metaphor to find different ways of working with the flow of life. And in many spiritual traditions, water is God. And for the NexGen Human, I think it's very appropriate, that analogy. So we hit the rapids. And in the rapids of life, you can call this, there's rapids, small ones every day, bigger ones in the dark night of the soul on the journey, where it's really, really difficult. Everything that you've come to trust is being turned on its head. Those are incredibly challenging times. And as a NexGen Human, I would propose, and I have discovered in my own life, that our ability to allow and be with ourselves in those challenging times could just be the most important and powerful skill we can develop. I resist the dark night. I resist the contraction. I don't like it. But I have found that embracing and moving in and turning towards and opening up in those times is the skillful, powerful move to make, and transformation becomes possible. And the bottom line is that it's not about not having those times or moments. I thought, well, I'm just not going to have these moments. I'm going to live in the light, and my life is going to be positive and perfect and uplifting and joyful at all times, forever. That's what I'm living for, but it's not a reality. And if it is a reality for you, I say, awesome, good job. Tell me how you do it. Because for me, I experience contraction. I experience darkness. I experience fear, worry, concern. And it's some of the most challenging moments and times in my life. But I'm learning to elevate above that. It's not about not having those times. It's about them not having me, them not having you. There's a part of us that's having those experiences, but is not those experiences. What is that part that is not those experiences? So this is where we get into trust. Trust is another major practice of the NexGen Human, learning to trust God, trust life force energy, trust the universe. I think it was Einstein who said, the fundamental choice we have as human beings is to decide if the universe is friendly or not friendly. What's your choice? Is it friendly or not friendly? Or is it some mix? Sometimes it's friendly and sometimes it's not. Well, I ask these questions in the book. Do you distrust the universe to not beat your heart for you? Are you worried about your next heartbeat not happening? Michael Choi here had a moment where he's like, oh, I was a little nervous. It might not keep beating. So, we get tested. Do you distrust the universe will not provide you air to breathe? Are you worried about your next breath and whether there's enough air? Do you have to make the sun rise every day? Do you have to create gravity every day so you don't fly off into space? Do you have to make the food grow out of the earth? What does these things? And can you trust it? Where does the life force energy that's producing this incredible experience of being alive in each and every moment stop? At what point do we say, well, I can trust it to spin the earth shine the sun and grow the food, but I can't trust it with my life. I can't trust it with the things that I need to have happen in my life. Why? Why does it stop somewhere? Why do we have to distrust at some point? Where is that point for you? Where do you declare, no, I'm the doer and the maker of the result that has to happen? All of life is ultimately a partnership with life itself. And this is what I'm waking up to, into a deep level of surrender. Can we give ourselves permission? I wrote this poem. I'm not a poet. I just boldly put my poems in this book. You know, these were just inspired words coming through me that I threw into a shape that kind of looks like a poem. Some are good, some are, I can tell, not so great, but they're all coming from a place of love. And so here I invite us to give ourselves permission. I give myself permission to dance wildly through the night, permission to be bowled over by God's beauty and light, permission to not know and to learn as I go, to open up and let it flow. However it looks and however it feels, I give myself permission. In the name of love, I give myself permission. So I invite you to give yourself permission to just let go, to be bowled over, to be the fool, to learn as you go. In the name of love, let's give ourselves permission. Chapter 10, walking the path. It's really important. It's a long-term journey of evolution, walking the path. And I love Margaret Wheatley. She said so many amazing things. And one thing she said was, you cannot understand the power of an individual by assessing or understanding who they are when alone. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. You know, we have all these psychometric assessments and personality assessments like Myers-Briggs, which basically looks at you as an individual, but that's only one part of who you are. Who we are when in community transforms. Who we are when we're in the presence of different people transforms. And she gives a great story about ants on the Australian savanna. They build these amazing tall towers, like 8 to 10 feet high. And when entomologists looked at the ants that were building these things, all they could see was that all they could do is dig. They looked at each ant and they're like, where's the queen ant, the king ant, the leader, the orchestrator? Where's the one that is orchestrating this? They couldn't find it. All they found was a bunch of individual ants that could dig. It didn't look like they could build these things. And then what they saw was that it was an emergent collective intelligence that enabled them to come together and build these things. That as an individual, they didn't have that wisdom, but as a collective, they did. So think about companions on the journey. As a collective, there's an intelligence, there's a guidance, there's capacity that you have when in the community that you don't have when you're alone, when you're by yourself. I find that fascinating. So who are we in relationship with? What is our community? What are the communities that we're subscribing to? That's an important question. So find your tribe. And for many of you here in Companions on the Journey, you found your tribe. It's Companions on the Journey. It's beautiful. And engage regular long-term practices. For me, in 2004, I found integral, transformative practice, and it has continued to be my primary practice in my life. It's long-term, it's integral, meaning body, mind, heart, and soul. It's transformative in that it directs my day-to-day practice towards positive evolution of body, mind, heart, and soul on an infinite evolutionary path of unfolding and discovery. And it's a practice. Each and every one of us are practicing something. To practice or not to practice is not the question. The question is, what are you practicing? Are you consciously choosing each and every moment your practice? Are you practicing joy and love? Are you practicing anger and fear? We get to say, we get to choose. The hero's journey is the main theme of this book. I really love the work of Joseph Campbell. The Hero with a Thousand Faces informed me in this book. And these 4 stages of consciousness and connection or separation, I found helpful in my own life. You know, for me, it's like when I was born, you see it in the eyes of a little baby. They come from God. They come from the infinite unified field of love. And it's just they're beaming and radiating. You know, people love to be around newborns because they're just extraordinary radiant beings of love. They're unconsciously connected to that source. And then at some point along our journey, we become separate. It happens unconsciously. It just kind of happens. We're unconsciously separate. Call that the fall. We fall from grace. Something happens. And then we become conscious of this separation. We call that waking up. Something's missing. Something's missing. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not happy. You know, you do all the things, you get the education, you get the job, you get the spouse, you get the house, and you're like, got all the money, whatever it is for you, you get it. And you're like, it's not enough. Something's missing. This is conscious separation. And that begins us on the path of the NexGen Human, where we're working towards conscious connection and ultimately dissolving into the oneness of God, becoming one. And that's coming home. And I love what Ram Dass said, that we're here just walking each other home into love, into that peace and presence and surrender that's available to each and every one of us. So that brings me to the end of this homily and the end of my book, NexGen Human. These are the traits. They're each important for really experiencing this oneness with God that's available to us, and the capacity to surrender into that infinite intelligence that has everything for us. It's for us, as Michael Beckwith says, and not against us. And so, can we move into the unfolding infinite intelligence that is for us? Thank you, companions on the journey. You are all NexGen humans. Homo Spiritualis is alive and well and getting even stronger. That I know, and that I affirm.
Well, Roger, that was brilliant. It was just an amazing finish to a series that we are so grateful in the community for you and all that you've brought to us. It's just, it's really, you've made so many things completely accessible. And I do honor you for that. And so thank you. I also saw something in that last slide, which I thought was really interesting. Well, there were lots of interesting things, but that notion of the unconscious connection, when you were talking about Joseph Campbell and the notion of the fall, and how interesting it is that organized religion co-opted that natural evolution that happens and called it sin. That it was something that, rather than being an unconscious thing, was a very conscious breaking of some sort of law, so that you were then unworthy. And I mean, for Campbell, of course, that's a necessary part of the path. You don't know what you have to lose something before you realize what it is. I mean, how much you need that. But I did just find it, and I won't go on, really fascinating that at that entry point, organized religion can say, oh, it's about sin, it's about you. And really, all we're really talking about here is that the basic sin is separation. That, and to call it sin is kind of a bad idea, but the notion of separation is really the only thing that happens to us that matters on this spiritual path, that we then become adrift. Anyway, thank you for that. It gave me a lot to think about.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a beautiful insight, that the organized religion inserted itself at that moment of human experience and co-opted it and said, oh, and if you, by the way, you want wholeness, you have to pay us and go through us to get what you're seeking. The only way to get what you're seeking is through us as the gatekeeper. Right.
Yeah, and these are the rules by which you can do that. If you do all these things, you will be fine. I mean, it's always been fascinating to me that organized religions weren't, well, and I say that in kind of some organized religions, not all of them are this way, but that they're not content with letting you be once you die, but they
Mhm.
have to take it off into eternity, something that, there's no control over and no understanding of. But that was a really, I don't know, would you call it clever or astute way of kind of, putting yourself in that place in people's natural evolution. It's such a tender moment that you could kind of grab that attention and that fidelity to something that
Mm.
would not necessarily bring you closer or bring you alignment or bring you connection. Because now a whole separate organization has been inserted between you and the connection. So
Yeah,
anyway, thank you for that. I
it's
thought it
beautiful.
was really brilliant. Yeah.
Michael Murphy is coming through me now, who said organized religion is more about crowd control than anything else,
Yeah.
which is an interesting statement. And, if you go back 600 or 700 years ago, some crowd control may have been needed. So I don't want to, disparage or say that these things weren't needed at the times that they were invented.
Right.
I've had family members, for example, one family member found her way into the Mormon church. And I was like, oh no, I was worried about that. But it provided her an incredible amount of structure and guidance and community support. And the community she was in was so loving and so supportive.
Yeah.
And it worked for a year for her and actually got her to a good place in her life. And then she grew beyond it and it wasn't working for her anymore. So for her, her soul and her path kept unfolding, but there was a year where she was really in, the Church of Latter-day Saints. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So they have their time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's almost like if you were to go bowling and somebody puts the bumpers down the side.
Right.
So it kind of keeps you within a space so that you don't,
Right.
it gives you a structure to stay stable in some for some and not for others.
Yeah.
But it isn't the answer. It's like a scaffolding on the outside of something.
Amen. Thank you.
That was absolutely lovely and heartwarming and positive and just beautiful. So thank you so much. And it made something come up really to the surface that I've been trying to look at. And that is the fact, when you start talking about how when we join together, our heart spaces mingle, within 10 feet of each other, we're feeling each other, we're feeling our hearts and all this stuff. And this, oh God, it's just harder to do on Zoom. And that's the crux of this, is that I miss our community so much. To only come together once a month is just awful to me. I miss the community, the talking, the laughing, the stupid problems in the churches that happens when you're there trying to make all this happen. And I miss everybody so much. And I don't know. I'd like to put it to our community and to the board and to everybody. Can we think of ways to do this differently than we are so we can join together again? I don't have the answers. I mean, I have been thinking about starting to try and find a little local church to go to once a month, just so, as well as COJ, just so I can feel other hearts and souls together in trying to commune with God and get into that space, But my favorite space is with COJ. It is one of my tribes, right? Probably my biggest tribe. So anyway, thank you for helping me realize this and recognize it. And I don't know what the answer is, but I just want to put out the question to everyone and to you, Roger, as well. I mean, what's another way to do this? I don't know.
I really love it.
That's it. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanna. And, for me, coming out of, the lockdowns and even now there's people that are sensitive to gatherings, you know, and I'm really just affirming the power of being in person with people. And there's a reason why conquerors divide and conquer. That's a strategy. So 6 feet distance, stay in your box, cover your face. This is a strategy for crowd control and conquering, divide and conquer. Okay. And coming together now. Wow. Oh, when I first came together with the Palo Alto ITP retreat in a live seminar, I was facilitating most of it. There was a healing moment for me as we moved in the room in a random walk. Barry Robbins was leading this, another ITP teacher, and brought tears to my eyes to feel the connection with other loving souls that was live in the room. I was like, wow, this is what's missing. This is powerful. And Jesus Christ said, wherever 2 are gathered, I am present. What does that mean, where 2 are gathered? I am present. Yes, God is activated in that close connection. Our infinite love and intelligence is present. So I am all for it. Let's get together. That is powerful.
Have to figure out how to do it.
I have no answers, but the
no,
yearning, the vision, the calling, this yearning, right? Where this fullness that's impelling us into communion and connection, allow it to guide us. That's what I would say.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, Roger, that was awesome. You totally initiated us into our NexGen Human template activation. Thank you for that. I really love working with archetypes and affirmations, and the hero's journey is so profound. Even when I asked Bashar, I said, do other star systems use the hero's journey as a process? And he said, yes, they do. So one of the most powerful things we can just invoke is our I am presence, right? So that's huge. And as I was working with my archetypes, I have several. One of my favorite ones with the Bashar work is I am an intergalactic human with cosmic consciousness. And I don't even know what that all means, but I love the idea of it, right? And so we're co-creating all the time in these fields of consciousness and unconsciousness. And I asked Sean this at his last retreat about how much does it change? What percentage or how many people need to change the morphic field, the tipping point? And he said 10%. And that doesn't seem like that many people. So one of my practices from David Wilcock, when we were talking about ascension, he just said, all you have to do is be 51% altruistic. Any little way you can. And Janice has been working with random acts of kindness. I like senseless acts of beauty, loving kindness. You don't have to go on the big stage. Just be an ambassador of peace and goodwill and love. Do your little altruism, and we are changing the world and the planet as we know it.
Amen. I love that. I got my cosmic intergalactic dolphin here.
Right on.
Yay. Who says yes to the hero's journey? It's a cosmic intergalactic, framework, right?
Right on.
Not just human.
No.
But it is a path of becoming and realizing all that we are. And I love the baby steps, just one step at a time. This moment, how am I called to be? Just a smile, to the neighbors. When I go out in my neighborhood, I ride my bike in my neighborhood here and I go on walks, and I just make a conscious intention to send love to every being that I see. And I do see beings with their headphones on and they're down into their cell phone, and I beam love to these people, and often their head will pop up and they'll look at me like I hit them with love, and I'll smile and they'll smile back. It's like I'm a generative force for love in the community. And some people don't. They just, for whatever, maybe they're in their dark night or they're having a shitty day, whatever it is, I still send love. So those are small acts of kindness, senseless acts of kindness and beauty. I love that. We can do this everywhere, small and big. Love it. Thank you.
Oh, wow, Roger. This was just right on for me. I've been having this agreement with God, my higher self, whatever, that I would take on a whole bunch of my weaknesses. And sometimes I think I've bit off more than I can chew, but we go through them kind of one at a time. And there's a lot of trickster human in this too. Right now, I am dealing with 10 feral kittens.
Wow.
And they're driving me nuts because I want their outcome to be okay. And I realize how I'm working on this and that it's really worrying me, because I also want to be available to a friend of mine who's having surgery in you guys' neighborhood, actually. And it will be my first trip out of New Mexico in many years. And I really, really want to meet some of you folks at this church. I really do. And because I feel more connected here than I've ever felt to any other group of people. I think you're wonderful, and I'd love to meet some of you. And that brings up the whole idea of the Zoom thing. I see COVID as having both a positive and negative effect. It's been a real, very, very annoying. I'm very sad that my husband's last year was during this COVID shutdown, because he was such a social person. But somehow we managed it pretty well, and neither of us were afraid of the disease. It never, I got shots, but more to please my friends than anything else, to make them feel safe. So I guess my next thing is it was just really helpful to look at what you said and see that it is a step-by-step process. And I'm really wanting to get in the flow again, because I feel like I've been in this kind of little tide pool, limited by, no place to go, just this little pool. And I'm just really ready to flow. And you gave me a lot of inspiration. Thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you, Marty. That's beautiful. I agree with you. Everything is an affirmation that I've been saying for a long, long time. I actually shared it in my last homily on May 21st. But everything happens for a reason, and that reason is there to serve me.
Mm-hmm.
My life is perfectly unfolding in a relaxed and easy way in its own perfect time for the highest good of all. These are powerful ways of being and seeing the world. And so I affirm that the whole COVID contraction and experience was needed and necessary for our expansion and evolution and transformation, that these forces of darkness, as Michael Beckwith says, are in service to our highest and best, to our realizing our God consciousness. And that's, for me, whether that's true or not, it's the most powerful way for me to see it, the most powerful way for me to hold it and to use it and leverage it, to take the shit of life and use it as compost and birth outrageous, beautiful flowers from that. That's the practice. That's the skill. So I see you doing that, and I thank you for it. And it'd be wonderful if you come to California and people can connect in person. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think
Amen.
I'm supposed to. We'll see how it works.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment that the lockdowns and the COVID episode that we just went through for 3 years alerted me that I couldn't trust the usual sources of information that I had been relying on, like the news media and so on, and reminded me that I had sort of gotten away from my spiritual roots, because a few years ago I discovered teachings of Ramana Maharshi, and I started learning about Vedanta and Indian philosophy, and I had very deep meditations for a while, and then I got a job working long hours, and while I was driving, instead of praying or meditating or listening to tapes of good news from spiritual teachers, I was listening to the news, and that was a mistake. And I've now, more recently, when I've started meditating again, I realized that I've sort of gotten off the track, and I've lost that spark, or that's lost the direct experience that I once had. And but I think it was all necessary. It was all helpful, because now I'm getting back to it again. I'm looking forward to getting on with it with all of you.
That's beautiful, Stefan. Yeah, a coming home, right? A return. We have to leave home in order to come home to appreciate how wonderful being home is. And that's what I sense that you did. As I often say, on my path of integral transformative practice, which I've been on now for almost 20 years, I fall off the path. And I fall off the path, and I allow myself to fall off the path, to contract and to drop my practices, and to then renew and resurrect and refresh, come back to them in with a newness. And I think nature shows us that, through the cycles of the seasons. There's this winter where everything goes inside and contracts. And we must honor that. I get very scared in those contraction states. I'm clinging to the light. I'm clinging to happiness. I'm clinging to feeling okay and safe. And then being in the dark, scary separateness of feeling alone and isolated and weak, I affirm God and I relax and surrender into that which is present at some level and come out fresh anew. And I've come out fresh anew every time, even though I don't trust it. It's like, this time it's not coming back. This time I've really lost my way. This time I'm screwed. No, it comes back. Oh, and so learning to trust that contraction and expansion is, for me, been incredibly important. And I'm still learning to trust the contraction, to be with the contraction in those dark nights. And having community around me at those times is so important, because, when someone else can be shining the light at a time when I'm in the darkness, that's a lifesaver, really is. So thank you for saying that, Stefan. I love it. You're coming back to your own truth that resides inside and following that compass and that guidance. Absolutely. Amen.
Namaste.
Namaste. I just would like to close with a felt sense of the heart, to just breathe down in and allow the words of wisdom from each and every one of you to just permeate our being. These beautiful rituals that companions on the journey facilitate, Keji and Janice, and Nancy with the music, it's all part of our reconnection and restoration to this oneness. So just breathing into and allowing that beautiful ritual and words spoken to inspire us and connect us to each other and to all that is. With deep gratitude and thanksgiving.